Hello everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a full-on review for Miss Marvel. Now there will be spoilers for the show and potentially for all other series and movies within the MCU, so just be aware when going into this overall video. Now Miss Marvel is the 6th live-action Disney Plus series based within the Marvel Cinematic Universe after WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, Hawkeye and Moon Knight. And you can check out my coverage of all of these shows within the channel, and I'll leave some links within the description. Now Miss Marvel is the story of Kamal Khan, a comic book character who was created in 2013 with the distinction of being the first Muslim character to have their own comic book series. Kamala discovers she's a metahuman with abilities of metamorphosis and capable of extending and stretching her body parts. She also draws major inspiration from Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. Now the series sticks to the source material close enough as we see Kamala in her teenage years in Jersey getting accustomed to her school life. We see her mixing in with her friends and her families. We learn of her culture and her way of living. And we confirm her inspiration and looking up to the Avengers, and in the first episode we see her embark on plans to go to the Avengers conventions against her parents' wishes. Her life changes when she comes across a golden bangle within her basement, and when she wears this, it grants her the superpower of creating energy waves and constructs with her hands. Kamala discovers the origins of the bangle when she comes across a secret group known as the Djinn, who want to acquire the bangle and get back to an alternate universe known as the Noor dimension. As she learns to master her abilities, her prominence as a superpowered being becomes far more public, and this draws attentions also from secret government agencies. Now after a very mixed, lackluster start in terms of the Disney Plus shows, in my personal opinion, would Miss Marvel be much more of a needed improvement? Now in terms of that answer, I would sadly have to say no, but in some departments perhaps also yes as well. Now in terms of positive, the show itself has a great positive vibe and energy, from its look to all of the screen transitions that we see, certainly in the earlier parts of the episode, where we have certain animated graphics and speech bubbles mixing in with the real life scenes. They very clearly wanted to create that very much of that comic book coming to life in terms of the visual tones throughout this film, alongside a lot of the bright pop soundtrack as well. This is a series that does indeed have a lot of colours and vibrant contrasts, as they very much wanted to make it accessible to a young teenage audience. Now this is probably the most consistent of all of the Disney Plus shows in terms of its tone. It's the one series that has the most certainty and assuredness in terms of the direction that it wants to go in. It mixes in those classic elements of the teenager discovering they have superpowers while also trying to balance their own personal life. And in the beginning, certainly throughout the first episode, maybe the first 2 episodes, this is all fine to start off with. In the lead role, I think Imana Finale is great as Kamala. She's very likeable and sweet-natured. I give props to the show writers for keeping her a bright personality and not making her the more typical angst-ridden or complacent teenager who hates everybody and doesn't take anybody's advice. Now, unfortunately, Miss Marvel falls down in terms of its story, or very much the lack of it. There never really was any compelling reason to keep watching the show from each episode, no real hook to get you excited for the following installment, no substantial fill-in to define the plot, no real goal for the heroine to achieve. At many times I was at a loss as to what exactly the show was about. Now it's clear from with this show that Marvel wanted to make a statement about introducing Muslim culture and heritage to its overall universe. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but that intention I believe has got in the way of creating a compelling superhero story. We've had so much focus in terms of the way of life, the history and the culture. It made the episodes just drag on too much, with only something really eventful happening in the last 5 to 10 minutes. I think these episodes would have actually benefited from a shorter run time as to what we got with WandaVision, which ran about 20 to 23 minutes. Now regardless of where you come from in terms of ethnicity or culture, I'm pretty much sure you would have ideally preferred a story of Kamala discovering her powers and then taking on compelling villains with a real sense of threat and danger. Now we did get some potentially more interesting story arcs in terms of introducing a Noor dimension existing within the current Earth, and when we talk about the history of the Djinn. The series tried to take this further in the end of the 4th episode, where we saw Kamala travelling back in time and looking back at the troubled times in terms of the partition and all of the intense dangers that brought within the Indian and Muslim cultures. But these themes of time travel and dimension weren't really fully explored enough. Neither were the interesting elements of the Djinn or indeed the Red Dagger groups that we saw introduced in the 3rd episode. The concept of the Noor dimension felt very familiar as to what was seen with the Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings with the Twilight dimension. Now this is a concept that I've never really found convincing, where we have a world or a universe already existing with planet Earth. I just find that concept not to be sound in terms of the dynamics, that you could have one world fully functioning without affecting the other world living inside it. And this show hinted at that idea, but it kind of did away with it as we went back to the Jersey setting for the season finale after the 5th episode. And in terms of the finale, it was nothing special. It was a decent episode overall, very much going back tonally to the upbeat positivity of the first 2 episodes, where we saw Kamala returning back to Jersey, revealing her abilities to her family, and her mother creates the more iconic comic book costume for her. We see the kids finding themselves under pursuit from the damage control within the school. We see Cameron lose control of his abilities as Kamala has to restrain him and later on try and get him out of the reach of the damage control. And after that, everything is wrapped up very nicely. Kamala is very much established as the new superhero. We have all of the typical reporting in terms of social media. Everybody getting excited at the prospect of the latest superhero on the block. Now, of course, what got everybody talking, particularly online, about this finale was the scene involving Bruno telling Kamala that she has different genes, again hinting at the source material. But curiosity was raised even higher when he mentioned that perhaps Kamala has some sort of mutation. And then during this scene, if you listen carefully, we had a slight tone of the iconic X-Men musical theme from the 1992 animated series. So this has got everybody excited, or very much speculating that this could be indeed the first emergence of the X-Men within the MCU. Are they presenting Kamala as the first mutant within the universe? That's going to bring up a lot of conversation, I'm sure, online and particularly within fandom. Are they establishing that there are indeed other mutants within the universe and they've yet to re-emerge with their abilities? So they're going to have to do a bit of explaining here in terms of how exactly they're going to set up the mutants existing within the MCU. How long have they been existing for? Do their powers only come to the surface after a certain age? What would have Kamala's abilities been if she didn't come across the bangle and she was just allowed to go on as normal? So there's a few loose ends that they need to tie up if indeed this is the first introduction of the mutants and indeed the X-Men. We then go on to the end credits scene of this episode, where we see Kamala back in her room and then she's walking to the wardrobe as her bangle starts lighting up, and then all of a sudden it pulls her in of the wardrobe, and then we see Captain Marvel, played by Brie Larson, appear, all in, it seems, a new costume in what seemed like she was transformed into Kamala. When I first saw it, I thought she literally had just been replaced, as if Kamala had been sucked into some sort of portal and then Captain Marvel had just been replacing her. But I don't know if she was transforming into Kamala or Kamala had been transforming into Carol Danvers, because we see Carol Danvers looking at her hand, which is showing the same colour energy that's what we saw with Kamala exhibiting her powers. So this is all much of a tie-in to the Marvels, which will be released next year. As we all know, that movie will feature Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, and also Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel, as what we saw from WandaVision. So I'm sure we'll get lots of hints and announcements later on down the line regarding very much the Marvels movie coming out in 2023. So going back to Miss Marvel as a series, if I had to give an overall score, I would give it a 5.8 out of 10. It did have things going for it, but it focused far too much on showcasing culture rather than a superhero story. Now, an apt comparison would be to the DC's Stargirl series, which is approaching its 3rd season now, which debuts on August the 31st this year. And that show shares a similar narrative of a young female teenager discovering her abilities via a weapon and then embracing a superhero role. But where did it far better in presenting a compelling story with stronger villains? It really is a shame that Miss Marvel didn't do the same, and yet again we have to reflect on another underwhelming and disappointing Marvel Disney Plus series. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and review of Miss Marvel, its overall 1st season. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you think it ranks within the overall hierarchy in terms of the Disney Plus series? Do you think it's amongst the best, or do you think it's amongst the worst? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as usual, you can check out other commentary on Phase 4, and I will leave some links in the description. So next up now we have She-Hulk Attorney at Law, which is coming overall in August. And of course, when that show arrives, I'll provide both a season premiere review and also a season review as well. So look out for those content coming up soon within the channel. Please also hit and like those subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay in safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.